The sunlight danced across the parquet floors of Olivia Morgan's West Village apartment, a family heirloom that predated the skyscrapers now competing for attention outside her windows. At 52, Olivia had built the life she'd always imagined: a successful career as a financial advisor, a seemingly happy marriage, and a home filled with the whispers of 3 generations of her family. "James, have you seen the statement from the contractors?" Olivia called out, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she sorted through a stack of mail at the kitchen island. The renovation of their upstate vacation home had gone significantly over budget, and she was beginning to feel uneasy about their financial position. James Wilson appeared in the doorway, his silver-peppered hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. At 55, he still maintained the confident posture of the college quarterback he'd once been. "I told you I'd handle it," he said, his voice carrying that edge it always did when money was mentioned. Olivia sighed. After 23 years of marriage, she knew that tone. "I'm not questioning your ability to handle it. I just want to understand where we stand. The last estimate was almost double what we initially discussed." James crossed the room and poured himself a cup of coffee, his back to her. "The marble countertops you insisted on weren't cheap, Liv." "I didn't insist on anything," Olivia countered, feeling that familiar twist in her stomach. This subtle rewriting of history had become more frequent over the past year. "In fact, I suggested we use local materials to keep costs down." James turned, leaning against the counter with casual dominance. "Look, I've got investments that are about to mature. We're fine." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Trust me." Those 2 words, "trust me," once so reassuring, now seemed hollow. But Olivia nodded, returning to the mail. 23 years was too long to throw away over a renovation. Besides this apartment, her grandmother's gift was their safety net. No matter what happened with James's business ventures, they would always have this place. The day unfolded with the practiced rhythm of their lives. Olivia headed to her office downtown, where she advised clients on their retirement plans, college funds, and investment strategies. The irony wasn't lost on her that she could organize everyone else's finances with precision, while her own marriage seemed to operate on a don't ask, don't tell policy regarding money. That evening, as she prepared dinner, a task James had once shared but gradually abandoned, Olivia decided to broach the subject again, armed with calculations she'd done during lunch. "I think we should pause the upstate project," she said as James poured himself a generous glass of scotch. "Just until your investments come through." James set the glass down with more force than necessary. "Jesus, Olivia, do you have any idea how much I've already invested in this? We can't just stop midway." "I'm not suggesting we abandon it," she clarified, keeping her voice steady. "Just a temporary halt until we're on firmer ground." "And have the contractors walk away to other jobs." James laughed, the sound brittle. "We'll end up spending twice as much to get them back." Olivia took a deep breath. "Then perhaps we should consider a home equity line on this apartment, just as a safety net." The shift in James's demeanor was immediate. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened. "Absolutely not. That apartment is your family's legacy. I won't risk it on a renovation." The sentiment would have been touching if it hadn't contradicted everything else he'd been saying. "It's not a risk if you're certain these investments are about to pay off," Olivia pointed out. James drained his glass. "You've never understood how business works, Liv. Not everything fits into your neat little spreadsheets." The dismissal stung, but Olivia pressed on. "Then help me understand. Show me these investments. Let's look at them together." "I don't need your permission to manage our finances," James snapped, reaching for the scotch bottle again. "It's not about permission," Olivia said finally, letting frustration seep into her voice. "It's about partnership, about transparency." "Transparency," James scoffed. "Like you were transparent about the money your aunt left you last year." Olivia froze. "That was different. That was designated for my retirement account." "Our retirement," James corrected. "Or are we suddenly keeping separate books now?" The conversation spiraled from there, old grievances, resurrected accusations hurled. When James suggested they clear their heads with a drive, Olivia agreed, hoping the neutral territory of the car might allow for calmer discussion. They drove in silence out of the city, the skyline receding in the rearview mirror. Olivia watched as familiar neighborhoods gave way to less familiar ones, then to areas she didn't recognize at all. "Where are we going?" she finally asked as James pulled off the highway onto a service road flanked by shuttered businesses. "I need some time to think," he said, not looking at her. without your constant questioning. The car slowed near a desolate bus stop, a single flickering streetlight illuminating an empty bench. "What are we doing here?" Olivia asked, a chill running through her that had nothing to do with the autumn air. "Get out," James said, his voice flat. Olivia stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "Excuse me? I said get out." James finally turned to her, his face a mask she didn't recognize. "I can't do this anymore, Olivia. The marriage, the pretending, all of it." "You can't be serious," Olivia whispered, her hand instinctively reaching for her purse, only to remember it was in the back seat. "I want a divorce," James continued as if discussing a business transaction. "I've already spoken to a lawyer." Olivia's mind reeled. "And this is how you're telling me, by abandoning me in the middle of nowhere." "I need space to figure out the next steps," James said. "Take the bus back to the city. Use the time to think about what you want from the divorce. But the upstate property will be mine. I've put too much into it." "My purse," Olivia said, her voice distant to her own ears. "My phone, my wallet. They're in the back." James glanced at the back seat, then back at her, his expression unreadable. "I'll have them sent to you. The bus should be along in an hour." "An hour?" Olivia's voice rose. "James, it's almost midnight. You can't leave me here with nothing." But James had already reached across her to open her door. One night of inconvenience versus a lifetime of unhappiness. Seems like a fair trade. "This is insane," Olivia protested, clinging to her seat. "If you want a divorce, fine, but this get out," James shouted, his hand now gripping her arm with bruising force. The shock of his aggression stunned her into compliance. Before she could fully process what was happening, Olivia found herself standing on the cracked sidewalk, watching as her husband of 23 years drove away without a backward glance. The reality of her situation sank in slowly. No phone, no money, no identification, just the clothes she wore and a wedding ring that now felt like a mockery on her finger. Olivia sank onto the bench, trying to quiet the panic rising in her chest. This wasn't just about a divorce. This calculated abandonment was something else entirely, something cruel and premeditated. As the minutes stretched into an hour and no bus appeared, a terrible clarity began to dawn. There was no bus coming. Not at this hour, possibly not ever, to this long-abandoned stop. James hadn't just left her. He'd erased her. The October wind cut through Olivia's light blazer as she walked along the deserted service road, each step taking her further from the bus stop, but seemingly no closer to civilization. The distant hum of the highway taunted her close enough to hear too far to reach through the maze of abandoned lots and chain-link fences. Her mind cycled through the same questions. Why had James done this? What had changed? And more pragmatically, how would she survive until morning with the temperature dropping and no shelter in sight? Headlights appeared behind her, and Olivia stepped off the road, unsure whether to flag the vehicle down or hide from it. Before she could decide the car, a sleek black Audi slowed beside her. The passenger window hummed down, revealing a woman perhaps 10 years Olivia's senior, her silver hair cut in an elegant bob that framed a face marked by both authority and kindness. "Are you all right?" the woman asked, her voice carrying the refined accent of old New York money. Olivia hesitated. Her situation was so absurd, so humiliating that she hardly knew how to explain it. "I'm lost," she finally said, the inadequacy of the word bringing hysterical laughter to her throat. The woman studied her carefully. "You're Olivia Morgan, aren't you?" Olivia stepped back, alarm replacing embarrassment. "How do you know my name?" "I'm Catherine Bennett," the woman said, as if that explained everything. When Olivia's confusion remained evident, she continued, "I've attended several of your firm's investment seminars. You have quite a reputation for integrity." Under any other circumstances, the professional recognition might have pleased Olivia. Now it only heightened her sense of surreality. "What are you doing out here alone?" Catherine pressed. "This isn't exactly a neighborhood for evening strolls." Olivia swallowed. "My husband. We had an argument. He left me here." The admission felt like swallowing broken glass. Catherine's expression hardened. "James Wilson," she said, not a question but a statement of fact. Olivia's surprise must have shown on her face. "Get in," Catherine said, reaching across to push the passenger door open. "It's not safe here and we have much to discuss." Every warning about strangers flashed through Olivia's mind, but what choice did she have? Slowly she slid into the car, its leather interior offering immediate respite from the cold. "How do you know James?" Olivia asked as Catherine pulled back onto the road, making a U-turn toward the highway. Catherine kept her eyes on the road. I've been tracking your husband's business dealings for some time, professionally speaking. You're a competitor. No, Catherine said, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. Let's say I'm an interested observer of certain types of men. As the car merged onto the highway back toward Manhattan, Catherine spoke again. This wasn't a spontaneous abandonment, Mrs. Morgan. Your husband has been planning this for at least 6 months. That's impossible, Olivia protested, though a sinking feeling in her stomach suggested otherwise. We were just arguing about renovations. The upstate property, Catherine nodded. A convenient money pit, wasn't it? Always requiring just a little more investment, just a little more of your joint savings. Olivia stared at the woman, unnerved by how much she seemed to know. Who are you, really? Catherine sighed. 15 years ago, I ran Bennett Manufacturing. Perhaps you've heard of it? We were one of the last American textile companies with factories still operating domestically. The name tugged at Olivia's memory. There was a scandal, some kind of fraud. Precisely, Catherine said, her knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. A brilliantly orchestrated scheme involving falsified building codes, bribes to inspectors, and substandard materials. Our main factory collapsed, killing 3 workers and effectively ending our company. The man who engineered that collapse walked away without a scratch. Olivia's mouth went dry. And you think James? I know it was James, Catherine corrected. Though back then he was operating under a different name. It took me years to track him down after he reinvented himself. The car exited the highway, but instead of heading toward the West Village, Catherine directed them uptown, eventually pulling into a private driveway guarded by an imposing wrought iron gate that opened automatically at their approach. Where are we? Olivia asked, gazing up at the limestone townhouse that looked like it belonged to another era of New York wealth. My home, Catherine said simply, parking in a small courtyard. You need a safe place to regroup, and I need to show you exactly what your husband has been planning. Olivia followed Catherine into the townhouse, too numb to protest or question further. The interior was a study in tasteful opulence, original moldings, museum-quality art, and furniture that had clearly been in the family for generations. Through here, Catherine directed, leading Olivia to a wood-paneled study. She unlocked a drawer in an antique desk and removed a thick file. I've been building this case for years, waiting for the right moment. Your husband has an established pattern, Mrs. Morgan. He marries women with assets, isolates them, drains their resources, and then discards them. Women plural. Olivia sank into a leather chair, her world tilting. Catherine nodded grimly. You're the third that I know of. The first lost her family's ranch in Wyoming. The second her inheritance from a shipping business. She paused, eyes narrowing. But you're different. Your apartment is in a family trust, isn't it? He can't simply take it through divorce. Olivia nodded slowly. My grandmother made sure of that when she left it to me. It's ironclad. Which is why he's been building a different strategy for you, Catherine continued, spreading photographs across the desk. These were taken over the past 6 months. Olivia stared at the images. James, with a young woman, beautiful blonde, with the confident bearing of someone born to privilege. The photos showed them entering hotels, dining at exclusive restaurants, even looking at real estate. Her name is Amanda Reynolds, Catherine explained. Daughter of Robert Reynolds. The district attorney, Olivia whispered, recognizing the name from newspaper headlines. The very same, Catherine confirmed. And now perhaps you understand the sophistication of what you're facing. This isn't simply about divorce. It's about erasing you completely. Olivia felt as though she were drowning, each revelation pulling her deeper. But why the apartment is protected? He can't have it. No, but he can have you declared mentally unfit, Catherine said bluntly. With a powerful district attorney backing fraudulent claims with documentation of erratic behavior with your mysterious disappearance tonight, he could gain control as your guardian. The trust protects the apartment from divorce, but not from this. Olivia's head spun. This is insane. No one would believe. They already do, Catherine interrupted, sliding over a printed email. This went out to your entire firm an hour ago. Olivia read with growing horror. To whom it may concern, it is, with deep regret, that I must inform you of a concerning situation regarding my wife Olivia. She has been exhibiting increasingly erratic behavior, culminating in her disappearance tonight, after a concerning episode. If anyone has information about her whereabouts, please contact me immediately. We are desperately concerned for her safety and mental well-being. Medical professionals have been consulted and are standing by to provide the care she needs when she is found. Sincerely, James Wilson. Olivia's hands trembled. He sent this to my colleagues. My clients will see this. By morning, your professional reputation will be in tatters, Catherine said not unkindly. He's moving faster than I anticipated. We need to act immediately. Olivia looked up, suddenly wary. Why would you help me? What do you get out of this? Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. Let's call it justice for now. I have resources, legal and otherwise, that can help you fight back. All I ask is that when the time comes, you return the favor. What kind of favor? Olivia pressed. Nothing illegal, Catherine assured her. Nothing that would compromise your principles. Just your testimonies when I finally bring your husband's entire operation crashing down. Olivia stared at the stranger who knew more about her life than she did herself. Every instinct told her to be cautious, to question this convenient rescue and Catherine's motives. And yet, I'll need a lawyer, Olivia said finally. Catherine nodded, reaching for her phone. I have the best in the city on retainer. He'll meet us in the morning. She paused. One more thing, Mrs. Morgan. From this moment on, trust no one. Not your friends, not your coworkers, and especially not your family. James has had months to poison those wells. My sister, Olivia began. Hannah in New York. Catherine raised an eyebrow. When did you last speak with her? A few weeks ago, Olivia admitted. She's been busy with her new job at the gallery. Catherine's expression remained neutral. Test the waters carefully before confiding in anyone. James wouldn't have moved tonight unless all his pieces were in place. As Catherine showed her to a guest suite more luxurious than most hotels, Olivia felt a curious mixture of terror and determination taking root. Her life had been shattered in a single evening, but from the fragments something new was forming, something harder and more resilient than the comfortable existence she'd known. Why tonight? She asked, suddenly turning back to Catherine. If he's been planning this for months, why act now? Catherine considered her for a moment. Because tomorrow he planned to have you sign documents for a joint investment account. An account that I suspect would have been emptied within days, with the transactions traced back to your signature alone. Olivia felt cold despite the warmth of the room. How could you possibly know that? Catherine's smile was enigmatic. Get some rest, Mrs. Morgan. Tomorrow we begin your resurrection. As the door closed, Olivia sank onto the edge of the bed, her mind racing. She twisted her wedding ring, then slowly pulled it off, placing it on the nightstand like a relic from another life. Whatever game James was playing, whatever Catherine's true motives might be, one thing was certain: she would not be erased so easily. Morning arrived with cruel clarity. Olivia awoke disoriented momentarily, forgetting where she was and why. The unfamiliar luxury of Catherine's guest room offered no comfort as memories of the previous night crashed back. Her marriage, her career, her very identity, all balanced on a precipice. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Catherine entered, already impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, carrying a shopping bag. I took the liberty, she said, placing the bag on the bed. Nothing fancy, but it should fit. My assistant guessed your size. Inside, Olivia found a simple but elegant outfit: dark jeans, a cashmere sweater, and a blazer that looked surprisingly similar to her own style. There were even undergarments with tags still attached. Thank you, Olivia said, the mundane normality of clothes almost bringing her to tears. Catherine nodded briskly. Thomas Adler will be here in an hour. He's the best family law attorney in the city, and more importantly, he owes me several favors. As Olivia dressed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror, the same face that had smiled at her from her bathroom mirror yesterday morning, yet somehow changed. The lines around her eyes seemed deeper, her gaze harder. Good, she thought. She would need that hardness. Downstairs, Catherine was waiting in the dining room with coffee and a spread that Olivia couldn't imagine eating. Her phone, a sleek new iPhone, sat beside her plate. Burner, Catherine explained. Untraceable but fully functional. My number is programmed in it. Olivia sipped her coffee, grateful for its bitter warmth. I should call my office, explain. Not yet, Catherine cut in. First, we need to understand exactly what James has done. That means going back to your apartment with legal representation. She slid a tablet across the table. But before that, you should see how busy your husband has been. The screen showed a local news website. A small item near the bottom made Olivia's stomach clench. Local financial advisor missing. Husband concerned police are asking for the public's help locating Olivia Morgan, 52, who disappeared last night after what her husband describes as concerning behavior. Morgan, a financial advisor with Henderson and Partners, reportedly left her West Village home in an agitated state. Anyone with information is asked to contact authorities. He filed a missing persons report, Olivia whispered, while knowing exactly where he left me. Building the narrative, Catherine said calmly. When you reappear, your version of events will seem like confusion or deliberate lies. Olivia scrolled further, finding her own professional photo accompanied by concerned quotes from James about her recent instability and out-of-character behavior. My clients will see this, she said, her voice hollow. They already have, Catherine confirmed. Your firm has received over 24 calls this morning. The doorbell interrupted them. Catherine's housekeeper showed in a distinguished-looking man in his 60s, carrying a leather briefcase. Thomas, Catherine greeted him with the familiarity of old acquaintance. Thank you for coming so quickly. Catherine. He nodded, then turned to Olivia. Mrs. Morgan, I presume Thomas Adler. I understand you've had a rather dramatic evening. His matter-of-fact tone was oddly steadying. Here was someone who wouldn't waste time on shock or sympathy, but would move straight to action. Mr. Adler has been briefed on the situation, Catherine explained. He's prepared to accompany you to your apartment immediately. Is that wise? Olivia asked. If James is building this narrative about my mental state, precisely why we must act now, Thomas interjected. Your unexplained absence only strengthens his position. We need to establish your presence, your lucidity, and your legal standing before he can further solidify his claims. The drive to the West Village passed in tense silence. Olivia directed them to the pre-war building she'd called home for over 20 years. The doorman, Carlo, who had watched her nieces grow up during their summer visits, looked startled as she approached. Mrs. Morgan, your husband has been so worried. He's been calling down every hour asking if we'd seen you. I'm fine, Carlo, Olivia said, forcing a smile. Just a misunderstanding. This is my attorney, Mr. Adler. Carlo's eyes widened slightly at the word attorney, but he nodded and let them pass. In the elevator, Thomas spoke quietly. If your husband is home, let me do the talking. Say nothing. Agree to nothing. Olivia nodded, her heart pounding as they reached her floor. At her door, she reached automatically for her keys before remembering she had none. After a moment's hesitation, she rang the bell. Nothing. She rang again, then knocked. Still nothing. He's changed the locks, she realized aloud. Thomas pulled out his phone. I'm recording this, he said before knocking more forcefully. Mr. Wilson, this is Thomas Adler, legal counsel for Olivia Morgan. We know you're in there. A moment later, the door swung open, but it wasn't James who stood in the threshold. It was a young woman with sleek blonde hair and cold blue eyes wearing what was unmistakably one of Olivia's own robes. Can I help you? She asked, voice dripping with artificial concern. Olivia felt as though she'd been slapped. Who are you? And why are you in my home? The woman's eyes widened in practiced surprise. Oh, you must be Olivia. James said you might come back. She extended a manicured hand. I'm Amanda Reynolds. James asked me to stay with him during this difficult time. He's so worried about you. Where is my husband? Olivia demanded, ignoring the outstretched hand. As if on cue, James appeared behind Amanda, his expression shifting from annoyance to manufactured relief. Olivia, thank God. He moved forward as if to embrace her, but Thomas stepped between them. Mr. Wilson, I'm Thomas Adler, Mrs. Morgan's attorney. We're here to collect her belongings and discuss the events of last night, which included your abandonment of my client in a dangerous area without means of communication or transportation. James's expression hardened. I don't know what she's told you, but Olivia left our home voluntarily after a concerning episode. I've been worried sick. He turned to Olivia, his voice softening to something sickly sweet. The doctor said this might happen, honey. Confusion, fabricated stories. Let's get you inside and call Dr. Mercer. What doctors? Olivia demanded. I'm not confused, James. You drove me to an abandoned bus stop and left me there. James exchanged a meaningful look with Amanda. You see, these delusions are exactly what Dr. Mercer warned about. Mr. Wilson, Thomas cut in. My client is here to collect her belongings and return to her home, which I remind you is held in a family trust with Mrs. Morgan as the sole beneficiary. James's smile never faltered. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This apartment no longer belongs to Olivia. That's impossible, Olivia said. The trust is ironclad. The trust was dissolved last month, James said smoothly, disappearing briefly before returning with a folder. When you sold the apartment to me. Thomas took the documents, reviewing them with growing concern. Olivia peered over his shoulder, gasping at what she saw: transfer documents with what appeared to be her signature notarized and filed with the city. This is forgery, she said immediately. I never signed this. We have video of the signing, James countered. The notary will testify to your presence and soundness of mind that day. Olivia's head spun. This is insane. I would never sell this apartment. It's been in my family for generations. James sighed heavily. This is exactly why I've been so concerned. These memory lapses, the erratic behavior. He produced another document. Which is why I've had to take more drastic measures to protect you. Thomas took the paper, his expression grave. A temporary restraining order. What a? Olivia reached for the document. Citing threatening behavior and unstable mental state. Thomas read, his voice tight. I'm afraid you'll need to leave now. James said, his mask of concern slipping to reveal satisfaction beneath. The apartment is legally mine, and this order prevents Olivia from coming within 100 feet of me or my home. This is my home. Olivia stepped forward only to have Thomas gently restrain her. Not according to these documents, James said. Now I suggest you leave before I'm forced to call the police and report a violation of the restraining order. That would only complicate Olivia's treatment options. The threat hung in the air. Thomas placed a steadying hand on Olivia's arm. We'll be contesting these documents immediately, he said to James, and investigating the circumstances of their creation. Feel free, James replied, unconcerned. Now, if you'll excuse us, Amanda and I have plans for the afternoon. As the door closed in their faces, Olivia stood frozen, unable to process the magnitude of what had just happened. All her possessions, her family photos, her mother's china, everything was now behind that door with a man she no longer recognized. He planned this perfectly, she whispered as they rode the elevator down. How could he fake my signature? How could he get a restraining order without me even knowing? Connections, Thomas said grimly. The Reynolds name carries significant weight in this city. If the district attorney is involved even peripherally. Outside, they climbed back into Catherine's waiting car. Olivia felt hollow, as if something vital had been carved out of her. They were wearing my clothes, she said numbly. She was wearing my robe. Catherine's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. We'll get it all back, she promised. But first we need to establish your mental competence and contest these fraudulent documents. That means psychological evaluation, character witnesses, and financial forensics. Thomas nodded. I'll file emergency motions today. But Mrs. Morgan, you should prepare yourself. Legal battles like this take time. And with the Reynolds family involved, I have nowhere to go, Olivia realized aloud. No clothes, no identification, nothing. You'll stay with me, Catherine said firmly. For as long as necessary. Olivia looked between these two strangers who had become her only allies in the space of 12 hours. Why are you helping me? Really? Catherine met her gaze directly. Because 15 years ago no one helped me, and because James Wilson has destroyed enough lives. As they drove away from the building that had been her home for 2 decades, Olivia felt something crystallize within her, a cold, clear determination. James hadn't just taken her home. He'd declared war, and she would not surrender without a fight. The next morning brought a fresh wave of devastation. Olivia sat in Catherine's sunlit breakfast room, staring at her new phone as notifications flooded in from social media accounts she rarely used. The first message from a former colleague was tentative. Olivia, are you okay? Seeing some concerning things online. Call me. The next was less charitable. Always thought you were so perfect. Guess the truth comes out eventually. Karma's a bitch. With growing dread, Olivia opened her rarely used Facebook account. What she found made her physically ill. A video already shared hundreds of times showed her at last year's charity gala for the Children's Hospital. She remembered the event, remembered having perhaps one glass of champagne too many after a particularly stressful week. The video, clearly edited, showed only snippets, Olivia laughing too loudly, momentarily losing her balance, making an animated point to a board member. Out of context, strung together, it painted a picture of intoxication far beyond reality. Worse, James had commented, "This is why I've been so concerned. These episodes have become more frequent, often followed by complete memory loss. Thank you to everyone who has reached out with support during this difficult time." The comments section was a cesspool of speculation and performative concern. I always thought something was off with her. My cousin had similar symptoms before her breakdown. Praying for you, James. It must be so hard to watch someone you love deteriorate like this. And most devastatingly from her firm's managing partner, "James, please call me. We need to discuss Olivia's client files immediately." Olivia set the phone down, her hand shaking. "They're destroying me," she whispered. "My entire professional reputation." Catherine, reading over her shoulder, straightened. "Call your office, now, before they make any decisions without hearing from you." Olivia dialed with trembling fingers. The receptionist's voice, normally warm, turned cool upon recognition. "Oh, Mrs. Morgan, let me see if Mr. Henderson is available." The hold music lasted only moments before Richard Henderson, her mentor and boss of 15 years, came on the line. "Olivia, where have you been? We've been worried sick." "Richard, I need to explain. James showed us the video," he interrupted. "And the medical reports. Why didn't you tell us you were struggling? We could have reduced your client load, arranged leave." "Medical reports." Olivia's voice rose. "Richard, there are no medical reports. James is lying. He abandoned me miles from home without money, or phone changed the locks and is trying to steal my apartment with forged documents." The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably. "Olivia," Richard finally said, his tone cautious. "James shared your psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Mercer. The paranoid delusions, the accusations against loved ones. It's all documented." "I've never seen a Dr. Mercer in my life," Olivia protested. "These are fabrications." Another pause. "The firm has decided it would be best if you took a leave of absence," Richard said, his voice professionally distant now. "Effective immediately, for the protection of our clients and, frankly, for your own well-being." Olivia felt as though she'd been struck. "Richard, we've worked together for 15 years. You know me. You know I would never—" "I thought I knew you," he cut in. "But the evidence—" "I'm sorry, Olivia. Your clients have already been reassigned. Security has packed your personal items. You can arrange to collect them once you're better." The call ended, leaving Olivia staring at the phone in disbelief. "He's isolated you professionally," Catherine observed. "Cut off your income source and support network in one move." "My clients," Olivia whispered. "Some of them have been with me for decades. They trust me with their futures." "And now they believe you've had some kind of breakdown," Catherine finished, "making any claims you make against James seem like the ravings of an unstable mind." Thomas arrived an hour later, his expression grim. "The restraining order is legitimate, though based on fraudulent testimony. We can fight it, but it will take time." He spread papers across Catherine's dining table. "More concerning is this psychological evaluation from Dr. Mercer dated over 6 months ago, detailing progressive paranoia and delusional behavior." "I've never met this doctor," Olivia insisted. "I believe you," Thomas said. "But the documentation is thorough, including insurance claims that appear to have been processed through your policy." Catherine studied the papers. "James has been laying this groundwork for months. The question is why the apartment alone doesn't seem worth this elaborate scheme." "It must be about more than the apartment," Olivia agreed, thinking aloud. "But we need to look deeper into his finances," Catherine decided, "and into his relationship with the Reynolds family." "I can get financial discovery once we file the divorce petition," Thomas offered. "But that will alert him to our strategy." "We're not ready for that yet," Catherine said. "We need more leverage first." Olivia, who had been scrolling through her email, suddenly gasped. "My sister just forwarded this from James." The email was simple but devastating. "Hannah, I know you and Olivia have always been close, which is why this is so difficult. The doctors say Olivia may reach out with wild accusations and stories. For her own safety, please contact me immediately if you hear from her. Dr. Mercer believes she may become a danger to herself if left untreated. I'm including links to resources for families dealing with late-onset psychological disorders. We'll get through this together. James." "He's poisoning my sister against me," Olivia said, fury replacing shock. "Hannah is the only family I have left." "Call her," Catherine suggested, "but be careful what you say." The call to Hannah went to voicemail. Olivia left a deliberately vague message. "Hannah, it's me. I need to talk to you about an urgent family matter. Call me at this new number as soon as you can." By evening, no return call had come. Instead, a text message appeared. "James told me what's happening. I'm so sorry, Liv. Please get the help you need. I love you." "Even my own sister believes him," Olivia said, a new hollowness opening inside her. "It's a calculated campaign," Catherine said. "Professional reputation destroyed, family relationships, compromised financial resources, cut off home taken. You're being systematically erased." Thomas cleared his throat. "There may be a way to begin rebuilding. A friend of mine runs a small manufacturing company upstate. They need a financial manager, nothing like your previous position, but it would provide income and establish your ongoing mental competence through employment." "Manufacturing," Olivia repeated, trying to imagine herself outside the financial sector she'd worked in for 30 years. "My old company's former factory actually," Catherine said with a thin smile. "I still hold minority ownership. The position would come with a small apartment above the offices. Not luxury, but private and secure." Olivia looked between them, understanding dawning. "You planned this before I even arrived this morning." Catherine didn't deny it. "I've been preparing for James's downfall for years, Mrs. Morgan. That includes having resources in place for those he victimizes." The realization that she was now officially a victim burned in Olivia's throat. She'd spent her entire life building security, independence, and respect, all stripped away in less than 48 hours. "I'll take the job," she decided. "But I won't hide upstate while James and his girlfriend live in my home, spending my money and destroying what's left of my life." "Not hiding," Catherine corrected. "Rebuilding, gathering evidence, and planning your counterattack." That night, as Olivia lay in Catherine's elegant guest room for the second night, sleep eluded her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw James's smug face, Amanda wearing her clothes, her colleagues turning away. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. With trembling fingers, she opened it. A video link with a single line of text: "Thought you should see what they're doing with your grandmother's things." Against her better judgment, Olivia clicked. The video, clearly taken from social media, showed Amanda hosting what appeared to be a party in Olivia's apartment. In the background, Olivia could see her grandmother's antique vases being used as wine coolers, her family photos removed from the walls, her carefully curated bookshelves emptied to make room for gaudy decorative objects. Most devastating was the final frame: James and Amanda laughing as they fed each other bites of cake off Olivia's mother's heirloom china plates, the last complete set from her childhood home. Olivia threw the phone across the room, a sob tearing from her throat. This deliberate desecration of her family legacy was the final straw. Whatever Catherine's agenda might be, whatever complicated game was unfolding, one thing became crystal clear in that moment: James Wilson would pay for what he'd done. Not just to her, but to everything and everyone she had ever loved. The next morning, Olivia emerged from her room transformed. The shock and grief had crystallized into something harder, something dangerous. "I need to go to my family's cabin upstate," she announced to Catherine over coffee. "There's a safe hidden in the floorboards with documents, the original trust papers for the apartment my grandmother's will, things James doesn't know about." Catherine studied her with approval. "The factory position starts next week. We can drive up tomorrow." "No," Olivia said firmly. "I need to do this alone. I need to stand on my own feet again." After a moment, Catherine nodded. "Take the burner phone. Check in every 3 hours. And Olivia," her eyes narrowed, "trust no one, not even those you've always trusted before." As Olivia prepared for her journey upstate, she caught sight of herself in the mirror again. The woman who stared back bore little resemblance to the confident financial advisor of 3 days ago. This woman had harder eyes, a more determined set to her jaw. James had tried to erase Olivia Morgan, but he'd succeeded only in creating someone far more dangerous, someone with nothing left to lose. The winding roads of the Catskills brought a sense of familiarity that Olivia had desperately needed. Her family's cabin, a modest A-frame nestled among towering pines, had been her sanctuary since childhood. Now, as she pulled Catherine's borrowed car into the overgrown driveway, it represented her only remaining connection to her past. The cabin had stood empty for nearly 2 years. After her mother's death, Olivia had meant to visit more regularly, but life in the city with James, with her career, had always seemed to take precedence. The irony wasn't lost on her now. The things that had kept her away were the very things she'd lost. Fallen leaves crunched beneath her feet as she approached the porch. The key was still hidden in the fake rock beside the steps. Some things never changed. Inside sheets draped the furniture like ghosts, and the musty scent of disuse hung in the air. Olivia moved through the space, pulling covers off furniture and opening windows to let in the crisp autumn breeze. In the kitchen, she ran her hand along the worn pine table where her family had shared countless meals. The cabin held no internet connection, no cable TV, a deliberate choice by her parents to make it a true escape. Now that isolation was exactly what Olivia needed. She made her way to the back bedroom, her parents' room, and knelt beside the bed. The loose floorboard was still there, hidden beneath a worn, braided rug. With trembling fingers, Olivia pried it up, revealing a small metal box nestled in the space between the joists. The box contained exactly what she'd hoped: her grandmother's original will, the trust documents for the apartment, her parents' marriage certificate, and other family papers that James had never known existed. Most importantly, it held her birth certificate and social security card documents that would allow her to begin rebuilding her identity. But as Olivia sorted through the papers, she discovered something unexpected at the bottom of the box, a folder she didn't recognize. Inside was a collection of newspaper clippings about building collapses and construction fraud dating back 15 years. Her father, an architect, had apparently been investigating something before his death. Olivia remembered him mentioning concerns about certain developers cutting corners, but she'd been busy with her own career, then only half listening. One name appeared repeatedly in her father's handwritten notes in the margins: Wilson Construction. With growing unease, Olivia realized this couldn't be coincidence. James's previous surname had been Walker. He'd mentioned changing it after a difficult divorce before they met. Had that been another lie? Her phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Check-in time. All okay," Olivia replied quickly. "Found documents. Also something unexpected about James's past. We'll explain when back." As she continued exploring the cabin, Olivia discovered another surprise. Behind her father's old desk, a panel in the wall looked slightly different from the surrounding pine. When she pressed it, it popped open to reveal a small safe with a combination lock. The combination her mother's birthday revealed a second cache of documents. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw what lay inside a sealed envelope, addressed to her in her father's handwriting, with a note: "For Olivia, if anything happens to me. Open only in case of emergency." With shaking hands, Olivia broke the seal. The letter inside was dated just 2 weeks before her father's fatal heart attack. "My darling Olivia, if you're reading this, something has happened to me and you've found yourself in need of protection. I've been investigating dangerous men who cut corners in construction, resulting in collapsed buildings and lost lives. The evidence I've gathered implicates several powerful people, including James Walker, who now goes by James Wilson. I've left copies of all evidence with my attorney Martin Goldstein, with instructions to release everything to the authorities if anything suspicious happens to me or our family. This is your insurance policy. If Wilson or his associates ever threaten you, contact Martin immediately. I hope you never need this letter. I hope I'm being paranoid, but I've seen what these men are capable of, and I can't leave anything to chance when it comes to protecting you. All my love, Dad." Olivia sat heavily on the floor, the letter clutched to her chest. Her father had known about James, or at least the man James had once been 15 years ago. Had James sought her out deliberately, knowing about her family's investigation? Had their entire relationship been built on his plan to silence any remaining evidence, the cabin suddenly felt less like a sanctuary and more like a trap. If James knew about this place, and surely he did after more than 2 decades of marriage, he might realize she would come here. She needed to leave. Gathering the essential documents into her bag, Olivia took one last look around the cabin. On impulse, she grabbed a framed family photo from the mantel: her parents, her sister Hannah, and herself at her college graduation. A reminder of who she really was before James had begun systematically erasing her. As she loaded her discoveries into the car, movement at the edge of the property caught her eye. A dark SUV was parked on the rural road, just visible through the trees. Olivia froze her instincts, screaming danger. She slipped back inside, locked the door, and peered through the window. The SUV remained stationary, but she could make out a silhouette behind the wheel, someone watching the cabin. With her heart pounding, Olivia reached for her phone. Before she could dial, headlights cut through the gathering dusk as a second vehicle pulled up behind the SUV. To her horror, she recognized Hannah stepping out of the car and approaching the SUV's driver. Twist number 2. The betrayal Olivia had feared was unfolding before her eyes. Her own sister was working with whoever was watching the cabin. After a brief conversation, Hannah pointed toward the cabin, gesturing animatedly. Olivia ducked away from the window, mind racing. The cabin had only one access road, now blocked by the SUV, but there was an old hiking trail that led through the woods to the neighboring property if she could reach it unseen. Gathering only the most critical documents, Olivia slipped out the back door and into the deepening shadows of the forest. The autumn leaves, so beautiful on her arrival, now betrayed her with every crunching step. She moved as quietly as possible, grateful for the fading light. Behind her she heard car doors slam and voices, one of them unmistakably Hannah's, approaching the cabin. Olivia pressed on her breath, forming small clouds in the cooling air. The trail, overgrown from years of disuse, was barely visible, but she remembered enough from childhood summers to follow its general direction. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, Olivia reached the neighboring property. An old farm that had been abandoned even longer than her family's cabin had stood empty. From there, she could cut across the fields to reach the county road where she might flag down a passing car or walk to the small town 5 miles away. As she emerged from the trees, her phone buzzed again. "Catherine, missed check-in. Status update needed urgently." Olivia typed quickly. "Compromised. Hannah betrayed me. Hiding. Will call when safe." The evening had fully descended, now the countryside illuminated only by a waning moon. Olivia picked her way across the abandoned fields, every sense alert for pursuit. In the distance, she could see flashlight beams sweeping the area around her family's cabin. When she finally reached the county road, Olivia was cold exhausted and increasingly aware of her vulnerability. No cars passed on the rural route. The small town seemed impossibly far away now, and she had no guarantee of safety, even if she reached it. With few options left, she called Catherine. "Where are you exactly?" Catherine demanded, skipping any greeting. Olivia described her location as best she could, naming the county road, an approximate distance from town. "Stay hidden but near the road," Catherine instructed. "I have people in the area. They'll be there within an hour. Don't call anyone else. Don't trust anyone who approaches you unless they give the password Bluebird." The call ended, leaving Olivia alone in the darkness. She found a drainage ditch beside the road that offered some concealment and settled in to wait, clutching her bag of precious documents against her chest like a shield. The hour that followed was the longest of Olivia's life. Every sound, from the rustle of nocturnal animals to the distant slam of a car door, sent her heart racing. Twice she saw vehicles on the road, their headlights cutting through the night, but neither slowed or stopped. Finally, a black sedan approached, moving slowly as if searching for something. It pulled to a stop near her hiding place, and a woman stepped out, scanning the roadside. "Olivia Morgan?" she called softly. "Catherine sent me. Bluebird." Relief flooded through Olivia as she emerged from her hiding place. The woman, mid-30s, athletic build, watchful eyes, ushered her quickly into the car. "I'm Diane," she said as they pulled away. "Former security specialist, now working for Ms. Bennett. We need to move quickly. Your sister and an unidentified man are still searching the area." "My own sister," Olivia murmured, the reality of Hannah's betrayal still raw. "I don't understand why she would do this." Diane's expression remained neutral. "People have their reasons. Usually money or fear. Sometimes both." They drove in silence after that, taking a circuitous route back toward the city. It was well after midnight when they arrived not at Catherine's townhouse, but at a nondescript apartment building in Queens. "Safe house," Diane explained, leading Olivia to a third-floor unit. "You'll stay here tonight. Ms. Bennett will contact you in the morning with next steps." The apartment was small but clean, furnished with basic necessities. Diane checked the locks, handed Olivia a prepaid phone, and departed with instructions to call only in emergencies. Alone again, Olivia sank onto the bed, the events of the day catching up with her all at once. Her sister's betrayal cut deeper than anything James had done. Hannah was her only remaining blood relative, her childhood confidant, the person who had stood beside her at their parents' funerals. As exhaustion finally claimed her, Olivia clutched her father's letter like a talisman. At least now she knew the truth, or part of it. James hadn't married her for love, or even for her apartment. He'd married her to neutralize a threat, to keep tabs on the daughter of the man who had evidence against him. For 23 years she'd been living with her enemy without knowing it. Morning brought a knock at the door of the safe house. Olivia, who had slept fitfully in her clothes, approached cautiously. "Who is it?" she called, remembering Diane's warnings. "Thomas Adler," came the reply. "Catherine sent me. Bluebird." Olivia opened the door to find the attorney standing there with a cardboard tray of coffee cups and a briefcase. Ms. Bennett thought you could use legal counsel this morning, he explained, handing her a cup. And breakfast. There's a bag of pastries in my car. As they sat at the small kitchen table, Thomas spread out a series of documents. I filed emergency motions contesting the apartment transfer and the restraining order, he began. But I've also been researching your husband and Amanda Reynolds. What I've found is concerning. He placed several photographs on the table. They showed James looking much younger with a group of men outside what appeared to be a construction site. This is from 15 years ago, Thomas explained, when your husband was still James Walker working for a development company called Apex Ventures. 6 months after this photo was taken, a residential building they constructed collapsed, killing 3 workers and injuring dozens of residents. Olivia stared at the images, the pieces falling into place. My father was investigating that collapse, she said softly. He suspected it wasn't an accident. Thomas nodded grimly. He was right. Internal documents eventually proved that Apex cut corners on materials and falsified inspection reports. But by the time the investigation concluded, the company had declared bankruptcy, the principals had disappeared, and no one was ever held accountable. And James just changed his name and started over. With help, Thomas confirmed. This is where it gets interesting. Guess who was the junior prosecutor assigned to the Apex case? Olivia's eyes widened. Robert Reynolds. The very same. The current district attorney whose daughter is now involved with your husband. Reynolds was responsible for collecting evidence and building the case against Apex. Mysteriously, key documents went missing, witnesses recanted, and the case fell apart. They've been working together all this time, Olivia whispered. But why target me? Why now? Thomas hesitated. There's a statute of limitations on most of the criminal charges related to the building collapse. It expires next month, 15 years to the day after the incident. So they're almost in the clear, Olivia said, thinking aloud. Except for any evidence your father might have gathered, Thomas finished. Evidence that could still implicate them in wrongdoing even after all this time. Olivia pulled her father's letter from her bag along with the folder of clippings she'd discovered. Like this, Thomas read the letter carefully, his expression growing increasingly serious. This changes everything, he said finally. If your father left evidence with this attorney, Martin Goldstein, Olivia supplied. He was my parents' lawyer for years. He handled my mother's estate after she died. We need to contact him immediately, Thomas said, reaching for his phone. Wait, Olivia stopped him. My father's letter said Goldstein would release the evidence if anything suspicious happened to our family. My mother died of cancer 5 years ago. My father had a heart attack long before that. Neither death raised any red flags. And James made sure nothing happened to you, Thomas reasoned. By marrying you, he kept you close, monitored your activities, ensured you never stumbled across anything incriminating. Until now, Olivia said, when he decided I was no longer necessary. A thought struck her. The upstate house renovations, they started right around the time the statute of limitations would have been on his mind. He needed money to disappear once he was in the clear. Thomas was already dialing. We need to reach Goldstein before they do. But the call brought devastating news. Martin Goldstein had passed away 3 months earlier. His practice had been absorbed by a larger firm client, files transferred according to standard procedures. We need to find out who took over his cases, Thomas said, already making another call. After a brief conversation with the firm's receptionist, he hung up, looking troubled. His cases were distributed among several attorneys. We'd need to know specifically who might have received your father's files. Olivia's phone, the prepaid one Diane had left, rang suddenly. It was Catherine. I've been trying to reach you, she said without preamble. Are you still with Thomas? Yes, he's here. Put me on speaker, Catherine instructed. When Olivia complied, she continued. I've discovered something about Amanda Reynolds you both need to know. She's not just the district attorney's daughter, she's also a practicing attorney herself. And until 3 months ago, she worked for the firm that absorbed Martin Goldstein's practice after his death. The implications landed like a physical blow. She has my father's evidence, Olivia said numbly. Or she destroyed it. Possibly, Catherine agreed. But there's more. The building project James has been pouring your money into upstate, it's breaking ground next month on the exact same site as the Apex collapse 15 years ago. They're literally burying the evidence under a new development. Thomas looked stunned. This goes beyond fraud and theft. This is conspiracy at the highest levels. And that's why they've been so aggressive about discrediting you, Catherine told Olivia. They need everyone to believe you're unstable before you can connect these dots publicly. We need to go to the FBI, Thomas said decisively. This crosses state lines, involves public corruption. Not yet, Catherine cut in. Reynolds has friends in the Bureau. We need more concrete evidence first. She paused. Olivia, did you find anything at the cabin besides your father's letter? News clippings notes in my father's handwriting, Olivia replied. And he mentioned copies of evidence, but not where they might be besides with Goldstein. We need to keep digging, Catherine said. In the meantime, I've arranged for you to start at the factory on Monday. It's the perfect cover. No one would expect the formerly wealthy financial advisor to be working as an office manager at a small manufacturing plant upstate. After the call ended, Olivia sat in silence, processing all she'd learned. James hadn't just married her under false pretenses. He'd married her to neutralize a threat. For 23 years, he'd been watching her, ensuring she never discovered her father's investigation. And now that the statute of limitations was nearly up, he was tying up loose ends, including her. I need to talk to Hannah, she said suddenly. I need to understand why she's helping them. Thomas looked alarmed. That would be extremely dangerous. Your sister has clearly been compromised. She's still my sister, Olivia insisted. And I think I know why she's doing this. She reached for the prepaid phone. But I won't approach her directly. I'll call her from this untraceable number and see what she says. The call went to voicemail. Olivia left a brief message. Hannah, it's me. I know you're working with James, but I don't believe you understand what's really happening. Call me on this number when you're alone, please. Thomas looked skeptical. You're taking an enormous risk. Family is always a risk, Olivia replied. But I have to try. Over the next 3 days, Olivia settled into a strange new routine. During the day, she worked with Thomas and Catherine, piecing together the connections between James the Reynolds family and the Apex collapse. At night, she stayed in the safe house, jumping at every sound, sleeping with her father's letter and the original apartment trust documents under her pillow. Hannah never returned her call. On Sunday evening, as Olivia prepared to leave for her new job upstate the next morning, a text arrived on the prepaid phone. Liberty Coffee Shop, 7 a.m. tomorrow. Come alone or I don't show. Last chance to talk. H. Thomas and Catherine both advised against the meeting, but Olivia was resolute. She's reaching out. That means there's a part of her that wants to help. Or it's a trap, Catherine countered. James could have her phone. I'll be careful, Olivia promised. Public place, morning rush hour, plenty of witnesses. The Liberty Coffee Shop was crowded when Olivia arrived the next morning, commuters lining up for their daily caffeine. She chose a table near the back, facing the door with a clear path to the rear exit. Years of financial advising had taught her to always consider contingencies. At precisely 7:05, Hannah walked in. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair hastily pulled back, wearing the same nervous expression Olivia remembered from their childhood when Hannah had broken their mother's favorite vase. Hannah slid into the seat across from Olivia, glancing anxiously around the cafe. You shouldn't have come back to the city, she said in a low voice. It's not safe. Because of you, Olivia asked, keeping her voice steady despite the hurt. You were at the cabin with someone, watching me, hunting me. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Olivia said. Why, Hannah? Why would you help James destroy me? Hannah looked down at her hands. He has evidence about David. Olivia frowned. David was Hannah's ex-husband, a Wall Street trader who had left her 5 years earlier. Evidence of what? Insider trading, Hannah whispered. Deals David made when we were still married. James said I could be implicated as a co-conspirator, face prison time. He said he could make it all go away if I helped him. And you believed him? Olivia asked incredulously. He showed me the documents, Liv. Trading records, bank statements in both our names. David used my personal account to move some of the money. Hannah's voice broke. I can't go to prison. I just can't. So instead you helped James convince everyone I'm mentally ill, stole my home, and destroyed my career. Olivia summarized, anger rising despite her resolve to stay calm. I didn't know that's what he was planning, Hannah protested. He said he just needed me to talk to some people, tell them you'd been acting erratic. Then it got bigger, and by the time I realized what was happening, I was already implicated. She reached across the table, grasping Olivia's hand. I was at the cabin to warn you. I knew James was sending someone to search it. I got there first, hoping to intercept you. Olivia wanted to believe her sister, but doubt lingered. Why should I trust you now? Hannah pulled a thumb drive from her pocket and slid it across the table. Because I found this in James's home office when I was picking up some papers for him. It's everything the original Apex documents emails between him and Reynolds plans for the new development. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And financial records showing he's stolen nearly $2 million from your joint accounts. Olivia stared at the small device. Why are you giving this to me now? Because of what I overheard yesterday. Hannah set her eyes darting nervously around the cafe again. James and Amanda were arguing about what to do about you. She said you were becoming too much of a liability, that you needed to be handled permanently. A chill ran through Olivia. They're planning to kill me. Hannah nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I never signed up for this, Liv. I was scared and stupid, but I'm not a murderer. I won't let them hurt you. Twist number 3, before Olivia could respond, the cafe door opened and Amanda Reynolds walked in, scanning the room with predatory precision. Hannah's face drained of color. She followed me. Oh God, Liv, she followed me. Back door, Olivia said tersely, sliding the thumb drive into her pocket. Now. They moved quickly through the crowded cafe, Olivia keeping her head down as they pushed through the kitchen and out into the alley behind. Once outside, Hannah grabbed Olivia's arm. My car's around the corner, she said. We need to run. But Olivia hesitated. How did Amanda know where to find us? Hannah's expression crumpled. My phone. I think they've been tracking it. James gave me a new one last week. Said it was a gift. A sleek black car turned into the alley, cutting off their escape route. This way, Olivia urged, pulling Hannah toward the opposite end of the alley. They ran, dodging dumpsters and puddles, the sound of car doors slamming behind them. As they reached the end of the alley, another vehicle appeared, blocking their path. Trapped, the sisters pressed against the brick wall as men in suits emerged from both cars. Miss Morgan, one called, his tone professionally pleasant. D.A. Reynolds would like a word. Hannah clutched Olivia's hand, trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Olivia squeezed back, her mind racing. The thumb drive felt heavy in her pocket, evidence that could bring down James Reynolds and their entire operation. Evidence that would never see the light of day if these men took her now. As the men approached, Olivia made a split-second decision. She pulled the thumb drive from her pocket and pressed it into Hannah's hand. When they take me, run, she whispered. Get this to Catherine Bennett. Tell her everything. I can't leave you, Hannah began. You can, Olivia insisted. And you will. It's the only way to fix this. Before Hannah could protest further, Olivia stepped forward, hands raised in apparent surrender. Gentlemen, she called, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. I believe you're looking for me. The distraction worked. As all eyes focused on Olivia, Hannah slipped away, disappearing around a corner before anyone noticed her absence. One of the men grabbed Olivia's arm roughly. Where's your sister? What sister? Olivia asked innocently. I came alone. A sleek town car pulled up, and the back door opened to reveal Robert Reynolds himself, his distinguished silver hair and tailored suit at odds with the grimy alley. Ms. Morgan, he said smoothly, I think it's time we had a conversation about your mental health and about the unfortunate accusations you've been making against respected members of our community. As they forced her into the car, Olivia maintained her composure. Hannah had escaped with the evidence. If her sister truly wanted redemption, she would get that thumb drive to Catherine. And if not, well, at least Olivia would face whatever came next, knowing she had tried to rebuild the bonds of family one last time. The car pulled away, taking Olivia to an uncertain fate. But for the first time since James had abandoned her at that bus stop, she felt a flicker of hope. She had discovered the truth about her past, about her father's investigation, about the real reason James had entered her life. Knowledge was power, and even as they took her away, Olivia Morgan was no longer powerless. The town car wound through Manhattan traffic, its tinted windows concealing the occupants from curious eyes. Olivia sat rigidly between two silent men in dark suits, while District Attorney Robert Reynolds studied legal papers across from her, deliberately ignoring her presence. They were headed downtown, she noted, toward the courts and government buildings. Was this an official arrest or something more sinister? Olivia focused on controlling her breathing, on observing details that might help her later. The driver took an unexpected turn and they pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a gleaming office tower. "My private practice," Reynolds explained, finally acknowledging her. "I thought we might have our discussion away from official channels. For now." The implied threat wasn't subtle. They escorted her to a private elevator that opened directly into a plush corner office with sweeping views of the harbor. James was waiting, pacing by the floor-to-ceiling windows. He turned as they entered, his expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been relief. "Where is Hannah?" he demanded without preamble. Olivia met his gaze steadily. "I have no idea. We got separated in the confusion." James and Reynolds exchanged looks. "Search her," Reynolds instructed one of the men. Rough hands patted her down, removing her phone and searching her pockets. "She's clean," the man reported. "No devices, no weapons." Reynolds dismissed the security men with a nod. Once the three of them were alone, he gestured to a leather chair. "Sit, Ms. Morgan. We have much to discuss." Olivia remained standing. "I prefer to stand for false imprisonment and kidnapping conversations." James slammed his fist against the desk. "This isn't a game, Olivia. Where is the thumb drive?" So Hannah had been telling the truth. The drive was important enough that they'd risk kidnapping her in broad daylight to recover it. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said calmly. Reynolds sighed heavily, settling into his chair. "Miss Morgan, let me be clear about your situation. You have been publicly documented as suffering from mental illness. You have violated a restraining order. You have made wild accusations against respected citizens. If you were to disappear, it would surprise no one." "Are you threatening to kill me, Mr. District Attorney?" Olivia asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm explaining reality," Reynolds replied. "James tells me you were always pragmatic. I hope that's still the case." Olivia laughed, the sound harsh in the elegant office. "Pragmatic, is that what you call it when someone accepts being framed, defrauded, and erased? I call it cowardice." James approached her, his face tight with frustration. "Just tell us where Hannah went with the drive and this can all go away. We'll tear up the restraining order. You can have the apartment back. Hell, I'll even make a public statement about having made a mistake about your mental state." "How generous," Olivia said sarcastically. "And what about my career, my reputation, the $2 million you stole from our accounts?" James blinked, clearly surprised she knew that figure. "Oh yes," Olivia continued, gaining confidence. "I know all about the money, just like I know about Apex Ventures, the collapsed building, and my father's investigation. Just like I know you married me to keep tabs on what my father might have discovered." Reynolds leaned forward, his politician's mask slipping to reveal cold calculation beneath. "If you know all that, then you understand what's at stake here. This isn't just about James or even about you. There are powerful interests involved who won't hesitate to protect themselves." "Including you," Olivia stated. "The prosecutor who buried evidence 15 years ago. The man who's now using his position to shield criminals and persecute innocents." Reynolds' jaw tightened. "I did what was necessary." "For whom?" Olivia demanded. "Not for the families of the people who died in that collapse. Not for justice." "For this city," Reynolds snapped. "Do you have any idea what would have happened if Apex went down? Half the major developments in this city would have been investigated. Construction would have halted. Thousands of jobs lost. The economy crippled. So you decided 3 dead workers and dozens of injured residents were an acceptable price," Olivia said, disgust evident in her voice. "And my father—" A shadow crossed Reynolds' face. "Your father was an unfortunate complication, but I assure you neither James nor I had anything to do with his death." "Just a convenient heart attack," Olivia said bitterly. "Believe what you want," James interjected. "But your father's evidence died with him. Or it would have if he hadn't left copies with Goldstein. Copies that your girlfriend conveniently acquired when Goldstein died," Olivia finished. "How neat and tidy." Reynolds checked his watch. "This is getting us nowhere. Ms. Morgan here is my offer sign a statement admitting to mental health issues and agreeing to voluntary commitment at a private facility. In exchange, you'll receive excellent care, retain ownership of your apartment, and most importantly, stay alive. And if I refuse, then unfortunately your deteriorating mental state will lead to tragedy, perhaps a suicide, perhaps an accident. Either way, a sad end to a once promising life." The casual way he discussed her murder sent ice through Olivia's veins. These men had been planning this contingency all along. "You won't get away with this," she said. "People know where I am. Catherine Bennett." "Catherine Bennett," Reynolds interrupted, "is currently being investigated for tax fraud and business irregularities. An anonymous tip came in this morning with quite compelling evidence. I doubt she'll be in any position to help you." Olivia felt the walls closing in. They had anticipated every move neutralized every ally, but there was still Hannah, still the thumb drive. If her sister had truly had a change of heart, there was still hope. "I need time to consider your offer," she said finally. Reynolds smiled thinly. "Of course. Take the afternoon. James will escort you to the Parkview Wellness Center this evening for intake. Once you've signed the commitment papers, all other issues will be resolved." "And if I don't appear at Parkview this evening?" Olivia asked. Reynolds' smile never faltered. "Then the emergency commitment order I've already prepared will be executed. Police will find you wherever you are and bring you in forcibly. The only choice you have is whether you enter that facility with dignity or in restraints." James led her from the office back to the elevator. They rode down in silence, the weight of 2 decades of lies hanging between them. "It didn't have to be this way," James said finally as they reached the lobby. "If you'd just signed those investment papers as planned, you would have taken the fall for the financial fraud and everyone could have moved on." "Including you and Amanda," Olivia noted. "To where South America, the Caribbean, I saw the foreign passports in my father's safe." James looked genuinely surprised. "You found the cabin safe. I searched that place top to bottom." "Not thoroughly enough," Olivia replied. "Just like you underestimated me all these years. You thought I was just a trophy wife, didn't you? Never bothered to see the actual person you married." For a moment, something like regret flickered across James's face. "It wasn't all lies, Olivia. There were good years." "Save it," she snapped. "I'm not interested in whatever script you've prepared to ease your conscience." In the lobby, James handed her an envelope. "Address and admission paperwork for Parkview. Be there by 7 p.m. or Reynolds makes the call." He hesitated. "For what it's worth, I argued for this approach. The alternatives they suggested were less humane." "How considerate," Olivia said coldly. 23 years of marriage, and the best you can offer is a slightly less horrific destruction of my life." Without waiting for his response, she walked away, pushing through the revolving doors into the afternoon sunlight. Freedom, she knew, was temporary and illusory. Reynolds' men would be watching her every move. The thumb drive was her only hope now. If Hannah had truly delivered it to Catherine, if Catherine hadn't already been arrested on trumped-up charges, if the evidence was still intact after 15 years. Too many ifs. Too many variables beyond her control. Olivia walked aimlessly for a while, her mind churning with possibilities and dead ends. Eventually, she found herself at the small park where she and James had often spent Sunday afternoons in their early years together. She sat heavily on a bench, watching children play couples stroll normal lives unfolding around her. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Got your package. Friend in trouble. Meet at the place where old things become new. 5 p.m. The message was cryptic enough to evade surveillance, but Olivia understood immediately. Catherine was in trouble, presumably the investigation Reynolds had mentioned, but she had received the thumb drive from Hannah. The meeting place would be the vintage clothing store where Catherine had taken her shopping for work attire earlier that week, where old things become new. For the first time in days, Olivia felt a surge of genuine hope. Reynolds and James believed they had her cornered, but they didn't know about Hannah's betrayal. Didn't know the evidence was now in Catherine's hands. At precisely 5 p.m., Olivia entered the vintage store in the West Village. The owner, a stylish woman in her 60s who had fawned over Catherine earlier in the week, simply nodded toward a fitting room at the back. Inside, Olivia found not Catherine, but Diane, the security specialist who had rescued her from the cabin. "Catherine's been detained for questioning," Diane explained in a low voice. "But she activated contingency plans before they took her. The evidence your sister provided is already being copied and distributed to trusted journalists, federal agents in other jurisdictions and international partners beyond Reynolds' reach." "Will it be enough?" Olivia asked. "It's damning," Diane confirmed. "Construction fraud, bribery, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and that's just the original Apex case. The financial records show a pattern continuing to the present day, including the Upstate project." But will it be enough in time? Olivia pressed. Reynolds is having me committed tonight. Once I'm in that facility, they'll have complete control. Diane's expression was grim. We can't stop that from happening. Catherine's resources are stretched thin with her own legal troubles, and we can't risk showing our hand too early by helping you flee. The evidence needs to be released strategically for maximum impact. Climax number 2. Olivia absorbed the implications. You're saying I need to go to Parkview, allow myself to be committed. Just for a few days, Diane said. By this weekend, the story will break, and Reynolds' entire operation will be exposed. They'll have no reason to hold you then. In fact, they'll be too busy saving themselves to worry about you. And if they decide to silence me permanently before the story breaks? Olivia asked quietly. Diane produced a small device that looked like a simple hair clip. Emergency beacon. Activate it by pressing here if you're in immediate danger. We'll have people monitoring continuously ready to intervene. It wasn't much reassurance, but it was all she had. Olivia took the clip, securing it in her hair. Tell Catherine I'm grateful. For everything. She knows, Diane said simply. And Olivia, whatever happens in there, remember who you are. They've tried to erase you for months. Don't let them finish the job in that facility. With those words echoing in her mind, Olivia left the vintage store and headed toward Parkview Wellness Center. The modern building on the Upper East Side looked more like a luxury hotel than a psychiatric facility, but the subtle security features, cameras, reinforced doors, discreet guards told the true story. James was waiting in the lobby, Amanda Reynolds beside him. The sight of the younger woman wearing an expensive dress that Olivia recognized from her own closet sent a fresh wave of anger through her. You came, James said, sounding relieved. I wasn't sure you would. Did I have a choice? Olivia countered. Amanda stepped forward, all professional courtesy. The admitting physician is waiting. We've prepared a statement acknowledging your recent episodes and requesting help. All you need to do is sign. The document she presented was carefully worded legal jargon that effectively declared Olivia mentally incompetent. Once signed, it would give James as her husband complete control over her medical decisions, financial affairs, and legal representation. And if I don't sign? Olivia asked, though she already knew the answer. Then the emergency order goes into effect, Amanda replied smoothly. With statements from multiple witnesses about your erratic behavior, paranoid accusations, and potential danger to yourself. The outcome is the same either way, but one path preserves some dignity. Dignity. They kept using that word as if allowing herself to be framed and imprisoned had anything to do with dignity. Twist number 4. As Olivia reached for the pen prepared to buy time, as Diane had suggested, Catherine Bennett walked into the lobby flanked by 2 stern-faced men in suits. I wouldn't sign that, Mrs. Morgan, Catherine called, her voice carrying across the marble floor. James and Amanda whirled in surprise. What are you doing here? Amanda demanded. You should be in custody, Catherine finished with a cold smile. Yes, your father seemed quite confident about that. Unfortunately for him, when one has spent 15 years building a case against corrupt officials, one tends to make useful friends in federal law enforcement. She gestured to the men beside her. Special Agents Patel and Morales, FBI Public Corruption Division, New York Field Office. The blood drained from Amanda's face. My father is being questioned as we speak, Agent Patel confirmed, along with several associates from the District Attorney's Office and the City Planning Department. James recovered first, his charm sliding into place like a well-worn mask. There's clearly been a misunderstanding. My wife has been experiencing some mental health issues. Save it, Mr. Wilson, or should I say Mr. Walker, Agent Morales cut in. We've reviewed the evidence Ms. Bennett provided. Very thorough documentation of the Apex Ventures fraud, subsequent cover-up, and current activities, including your recent financial manipulations of your wife's accounts. Catherine approached Olivia, standing protectively beside her. You've been playing chess, James, but you've been missing pieces on the board. Martin Goldstein may have died, but he wasn't the only one Richard Morgan trusted with his evidence. Understanding dawned on James's face. You. He gave copies to you. We served on the same nonprofit board, Catherine confirmed. He knew about my history with Apex, knew I'd keep investigating no matter what happened to him. What you and Reynolds never realized was that your 15-year countdown was meaningless. We've been building this case all along, waiting for the right moment. Amanda grabbed her purse. I need to call my father. I wouldn't, Agent Patel advised. Any communication could be construed as conspiracy at this point. Ms. Reynolds, we have questions about your role in accessing sealed files from Martin Goldstein's practice after his death. As the agents separated James and Amanda for preliminary questioning, Catherine led Olivia to a quiet corner of the lobby. "You're safe now," she said gently. "They can't touch you anymore." Olivia's legs nearly buckled with relief. "Hannah, is she safe?" Catherine nodded. "She's cooperating fully. Her testimony about how James coerced her will be vital to your case for recovering damages." "And you?" Olivia asked. "Reynolds said you were being investigated." "A desperate ploy," Catherine said dismissively. "They tried to freeze my accounts this morning, but I've been preparing for their retaliation for years. My assets are well protected." Across the lobby, Olivia watched as James was handcuffed, his expression a mixture of disbelief and fury as he stared in her direction. 23 years of marriage ending in a luxury psychiatric facility lobby with her husband in custody and his mistress facing obstruction charges. "What happens now?" Olivia asked, feeling oddly hollow despite the victory unfolding before her. "Justice," Catherine said simply, "for the families of those who died in the collapse, for your father whose investigation was vindicated, for you whose life was nearly destroyed." She paused. "And for me, finally after 15 years. As they left Parkview together, Olivia glanced back at the building that had nearly become her prison. James had tried to erase her, her identity, her independence, her very sanity. He had nearly succeeded, but in the end the truth had emerged as it always did from the shadows where corrupt men tried to bury it. And Olivia Morgan had emerged with it stronger than before, ready to rebuild on foundations that could never be shaken again. 6 weeks after the arrests of James Wilson and the Reynolds family, Olivia stood in the doorway of her West Village apartment, keys in hand. The moment should have felt triumphant, reclaiming her home, her heritage, her rightful place. Instead, crossing the threshold filled her with a complicated mixture of relief and unease. The apartment had been processed as a crime scene, investigators combing through James and Amanda's belongings for additional evidence. Now it stood empty of their presence, but still haunted by what had happened. Olivia moved slowly through the rooms, taking inventory of what remained and what was gone. Her grandmother's antique vases had been carelessly broken. Family photos had been removed from frames replaced with glossy shots of James and Amanda. The bookshelves had been emptied of her beloved collection, filled instead with decorative objects that meant nothing to her. The apartment was physically hers again, but it no longer felt like home. "We can replace everything," Hannah said softly from behind her. The sisters' relationship remained fragile, a delicate rebuilding process fraught with hurt and cautious forgiveness. "Not everything," Olivia replied, running her hand along the empty bookshelf. "Some things are irreplaceable." Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I'm so sorry, Liv. If I could take it back." "You can't," Olivia cut in, not unkindly. "None of us can go back. We can only go forward." The past weeks had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and slow, painstaking reconstruction of Olivia's life. The FBI investigation had uncovered far more than even Catherine had anticipated, a sprawling web of corruption involving dozens of officials, developers, and financial institutions. James and Robert Reynolds had merely been mid-level players in a scheme that stretched back decades. Catherine's resources had proven invaluable in navigating the aftermath. Her connections had helped fast-track the restoration of Olivia's legal rights to the apartment, the nullification of the fraudulent restraining order, and the beginning of proceedings to recover the stolen funds. But the damage to Olivia's professional reputation and personal life couldn't be fixed with legal documents or court orders. "The movers will be here tomorrow with your things from the safe house," Hannah said, trying to fill the heavy silence. "And I found some boxes of books in storage from Mom and Dad's place that you might want to go through." Olivia nodded absently, her mind elsewhere. "I saw Thomas this morning. He says the divorce proceedings should be straightforward given the circumstances, but James is still trying to claim some of the assets as marital property." Hannah snorted in disbelief. "After everything he did, the man has no shame." "No, he doesn't," Olivia agreed. "But it doesn't matter. The financial fraud charges alone will put him away for years. The conspiracy and obstruction charges will add more. He'll never touch a penny of what he stole." She moved to the large windows overlooking the street, watching the familiar rhythm of West Village life continuing below. How strange that the world kept turning while hers had been completely upended. Have you decided about the job at the factory? Hannah asked, joining her at the window. Olivia had been surprised to find she enjoyed the work at Catherine's manufacturing plant. The small company produced specialized textiles, and though the position was a significant step down from her former career, there was something satisfying about its straightforward challenges. I'm going to stay on, she decided aloud. At least for now. My old firm offered to reinstate me with apologies, but I'm not sure I want to go back to that life. Really? Hannah looked surprised. I thought you loved financial advising. I did, Olivia acknowledged. But I'm not the same person I was before all this. I need something different now. She turned to face her sister. Which reminds me, Catherine offered me her apartment above the factory offices permanently. I'm considering taking it. Hannah's expression fell. You're leaving the city, but we've just started to rebuild. I'm not abandoning our relationship, Olivia assured her. But this apartment, she gestured around them. It's filled with ghosts now. James's betrayal, Amanda's presence, your involvement. I can't heal properly here. The hurt in Hannah's eyes was palpable, but she nodded slowly. I understand. Just promise you won't disappear from my life again. I promise, Olivia said, reaching for her sister's hand. But healing takes time, for both of us. Later that evening, after Hannah had gone, Olivia sat alone in the kitchen where she'd first confronted James about their finances months earlier. The apartment was quiet except for the distant street sounds filtering through the windows. On the table before her lay Catherine's latest report on the case pages of financial records, witness statements, and legal proceedings. The evidence against James was overwhelming. Beyond the theft of their joint funds, investigators had uncovered offshore accounts, shell companies, and a pattern of fraud stretching back to before their marriage. The man she had loved for 23 years had never truly existed. Her phone rang, displaying Catherine's number. How was the homecoming? Catherine asked without preamble. Surreal, Olivia admitted. It's mine again, but it doesn't feel like home anymore. That's not surprising, Catherine replied. Too many memories, too much betrayal. I've decided to take the apartment upstate, Olivia said, and keep the position at the factory. Catherine's approval was evident in her voice. I think that's wise. A fresh start, but with purpose. And the apartment here will still be a valuable asset if you choose to rent it out. They discussed practical matters for a few minutes, the ongoing legal proceedings, the management of recovered assets, the media attention that continued to swirl around the case. Then Catherine's tone shifted. There's something else you should know, she said. Amanda Reynolds has offered to cooperate fully with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. Olivia's grip tightened on the phone. What does that mean for James? It means his already dire legal situation just got worse, Catherine explained. Amanda has documentation of conversations where they explicitly plan to have you committed indefinitely or worse if necessary. The confirmation of how close she had come to being permanently silenced sent a chill through Olivia. I suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed. It's disturbing, Catherine acknowledged. But it also strengthens the civil case against both of them. You'll be entitled to substantial damages. After they hung up, Olivia poured herself a glass of wine and moved to the living room window. The city lights glimmered in the darkness, beautiful and distant. For so many years, this view had represented security success, the fulfillment of her family's legacy. Now it felt like a relic from another life, a life that had turned out to be built on lies. The decision to leave was growing clearer with every passing hour. This apartment would always be tied to James's betrayal, to the systematic erasure of her identity. The financial value was significant, but the emotional cost of staying was too high. Climax number 3, the next morning, Olivia woke with absolute clarity. She dressed quickly and called Thomas Adler. I want to donate the apartment, she said without preamble. The attorney's surprise was evident. Donate Olivia, this property is worth millions. The trust allows you to sell it, but... I don't want to sell it, she interrupted. I want to donate it to the Apex Victims Fund. The families of those who died or were injured in the collapse 15 years ago. Many of them are still struggling with medical bills, lost income. There was a long pause. Are you certain about this? This apartment is your financial security, your inheritance? I'm certain, Olivia said firmly. My grandparents wanted this home to provide security for future generations. What better way to honor that than to give families back the security that James and his associates stole from them? It's extraordinarily generous, Thomas said carefully. But you should take some time to consider. I've had all the time I need, Olivia cut in. 23 years with a man who married me for my family's connections to a case against him. Months of being systematically erased and gaslighted. Weeks of rebuilding from nothing. I know exactly what I'm doing, Thomas. After finalizing the arrangements with her attorney, Olivia called Hannah to explain her decision. Her sister was stunned but supportive. Are you sure this isn't about punishing yourself? Hannah asked gently. You didn't do anything wrong, Liv. This isn't punishment, Olivia assured her. It's freedom. As long as I hold on to this place, I'm holding on to the past, both the good and the terrible. I need to let it all go to move forward. By afternoon, the paperwork was in progress. The apartment would be sold by the trust with proceeds going to establish a foundation for the Apex victims and their families. Olivia would retain a small percentage to secure her own future, but the bulk of her inheritance, the legacy that James had coveted for so long, would provide healing for those whose lives had been shattered by his actions. As news of her decision spread through the legal teams involved in the case, Olivia received an unexpected call from Agent Patel of the FBI. Mrs. Morgan, I wanted to personally commend your decision regarding the apartment, he said. It's rare to see such generosity in these cases. It felt like the right thing to do, she replied simply. There's something else you should know, the agent continued. Based on Amanda Reynolds' testimony, we've uncovered new evidence regarding your father's death. Olivia's heart lurched. What kind of evidence? While there's no indication that his heart attack was anything but natural, there is strong evidence that James deliberately withheld his medication during the episode, Agent Patel explained carefully. Ms. Reynolds testified that he confessed this to her, describing how he let nature take its course when your father began showing symptoms. The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. Her father might not have been murdered outright, but James had stood by and watched him die, had deliberately prevented him from receiving life-saving medication. The betrayal cut deeper than she had imagined possible. We're adding negligent homicide to the charges, Patel continued gently. I wanted you to hear it from me before it appears in legal documents or the press. After the call ended, Olivia sat motionless, absorbing this final, devastating piece of the puzzle. James hadn't just married her to monitor her father's investigation, he had played a direct role in her father's death. The man who had held her through her grief, who had helped arrange the funeral, who had seemed so supportive during that terrible time, had been responsible all along. When Catherine arrived that evening to help with packing, she found Olivia sitting in the dimly lit living room surrounded by half-filled boxes. Agent Patel called you, Catherine surmised, taking in Olivia's expression. Did you know? Olivia asked quietly. About my father's medication. Catherine sat beside her on the couch. I suspected. There were inconsistencies in the medical report that never made sense, but I had no proof until Amanda's testimony. All these years, Olivia whispered, he watched me grieve, pretended to comfort me, knowing what he'd done. Catherine didn't offer empty consolations or platitudes. Instead, she simply sat with Olivia as the final pieces of her old life crumbled away, making space for something new to emerge from the ruins. Later, as they packed books into boxes, Catherine paused. I've been meaning to ask you something. The factory's management position, it was always temporary in my mind, a safe place for you during the crisis. But you've shown remarkable aptitude for the work. Would you consider taking on a more permanent role, as a partner, not just an employee? Olivia looked up in surprise. A partner, Catherine, I know nothing about manufacturing. You know finance strategy, people management, Catherine countered. The technical aspects you can learn. What I need is someone I trust, someone with integrity and resilience, someone who can't be bought or intimidated. She smiled slightly. You've more than proven yourself on those counts. The offer was unexpected, but not unwelcome. I'd need time to think about it, Olivia said carefully. Of course, Catherine agreed. But consider this. The factory was my new beginning after Apex destroyed my company. It could be yours too. Something built from the ashes, something honest and productive. That night, in what would be one of her final evenings in the apartment, Olivia stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The decision to donate the property had lifted an invisible weight from her shoulders. The apartment had been both shelter and prison, a physical manifestation of everything she'd lost and everything she'd clung to. 6 months ago, she had been Olivia Morgan Wilson, respected financial advisor, with a seemingly solid marriage and secure future. Now she was simply Olivia Morgan again, stripped of pretense, illusion, and false security. The journey had been brutal, but standing here on the precipice of her new life, she felt something unexpected: freedom. James had tried to erase her identity, to rewrite her as unstable and incompetent. Instead, he had inadvertently helped her discover a strength and resilience she hadn't known she possessed. In his attempt to destroy her, he had instead forced her to rebuild herself, stronger, wiser, and finally truly free. Tomorrow, she would leave this apartment for the last time, heading upstate to the small manufacturing town where Catherine's factory operated. She would start again, not as the victim of a devastating betrayal, but as a woman who had faced the worst and survived, who had reclaimed her story and chosen how it would continue. James Wilson had put a price on her betrayal: $2 million, a forged mental health diagnosis, and a life sentence of institutionalization. But Olivia Morgan had set her own price in return: truth, justice, and a legacy of healing that would far outlast the pain he had caused. As she turned to go inside, Olivia took one last look at the city skyline, the same view she had shared with James for 23 years. But tonight she saw it with new eyes. Not as something to cling to, but as something to release. Not as an ending, but as the first step toward whatever came next. The betrayal had cost her nearly everything. But what remained: her integrity, her resilience, her capacity for compassion, even in the face of terrible harm, was priceless, and that no one could ever take away. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Olivia's office at Bennett Textiles, illuminating the production reports spread across her desk. Below, the factory floor hummed with activity, skilled workers creating specialized fabrics for medical and industrial applications. In the 6 months since taking on a partnership role, Olivia had helped expand their client base by 30%, drawing on her financial expertise to identify new markets and opportunities. A knock at the door interrupted her review. Hannah stood there, weekend bag in hand, looking more relaxed than Olivia had seen her in years. "Right on time," Olivia smiled, rising to embrace her sister. These monthly visits had become a cherished ritual, a conscious effort to rebuild their relationship, one conversation at a time. "The drive gets easier every time," Hannah said, setting down her bag. "Though I still don't understand how you traded Manhattan for this little town." "I traded chaos for peace," Olivia corrected gently. "Besides, it's only 2 hours from the city, close enough to visit, far enough to start fresh." They walked together through the factory, Olivia proudly pointing out recent innovations and introducing Hannah to workers she hadn't met on previous visits. The staff greeted Olivia with genuine respect, not as the boss's friend or charity case, but as a leader who had earned their trust. Later, over dinner in Olivia's apartment above the factory offices, Hannah shared news from the city. "James's sentencing is next week," she said cautiously, watching for Olivia's reaction. 15 to 20 years, according to Thomas. With the additional charges from your father's case, he'll likely serve most of it." Olivia nodded, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. "And Amanda?" 5 years reduced for cooperation. Robert Reynolds got 12. Hannah paused. "The Apex Victims Foundation has already distributed the first round of assistance from the apartment sale. The publicity has brought in additional donations. They've raised almost $10 million. "Good," Olivia said simply. "That's good." After dinner, they walked through the small town, stopping for ice cream at the local shop where Olivia had become a regular. The simple pleasure sitting on a bench by the town square, watching families enjoy the warm spring evening, felt like a victory in itself. "Are you happy here, Liv?" Hannah asked suddenly. "Really happy, I mean. Not just surviving." Olivia considered the question seriously. "I'm at peace," she said finally. "Happiness comes in moments like this one, sharing ice cream with my sister. But peace is deeper. After everything that happened, peace feels like a miracle." As they walked back to the factory building, Olivia glanced up at the modest offices that had become her new home. Catherine had been right. There was something healing about building something real, something honest from the ashes of betrayal. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: production schedules, client meetings, financial projections. But tonight, walking beside her sister under a canopy of stars visible in the small town sky, Olivia Morgan was exactly where she needed to be. Not defined by what she had lost, but by what she had chosen to create in its place. The price of betrayal had been devastatingly high, but the value of redemption, of reclaiming her story on her own terms, was beyond measure.